And we are back. Today we're working on a bit of a cosmetic restoration. We're going to see if there's anything we can do to restore the glossy finish to a very scuffed up PS3. This is a launch model PS3 that was donated to the channel. I do plan to attempt a repair on this console eventually, but PS3 projects are such a huge time commitment that I'm going to work my way up to giving this repair a shot. For today, I'm going to focus on restoring the glossy shell. So we're down in the garage, and I'm going to give this console a good wipe down just to establish a baseline to compare the results to later. I plan to try a bunch of products designed to remove scratches in an effort to see if any of them will do a decent job in removing scratches from the body of this console. I have the face of the system very clean, and as we can see, it is very scratched up. There's also some sort of what looks like super glue on the top right there that I wasn't able to remove, so we're just going to work around some of those imperfections in the case. As for the products that I'm going to experiment with, here I have a few polishing wheels. The first product I'm going to test is a product from Meguiar's called Plastics. I'm also going to test a product called Scratch Doctor from New Finish. And I'm going to be trying this Dremel polishing compound. Most people use this compound for polishing metals, but Dremel's website does say that it's safe for use on plastics. I don't own any dedicated polishing tools. I'm just going to be using my drill for these polishing wheels. I'm not too concerned about any excessive heat buildup or damaging the plastic. The fastest setting on my drill is less than 2000 RPM, and that's apparently a relatively low speed for this sort of application. After applying a reasonable amount of the compound, I just work it in, going in all directions to get good coverage over my work area. We have 3 compounds to try, and I'm going to apply each of those compounds twice, so a lot of the subsequent polishing footage is going to be sped up and edited down. This is probably the only kind of section where I'm going to show the process in a little bit more detail so that you guys can get a sense of how I applied the remaining compounds. So for this section, as you guys can see, I applied the compound, I buffed it out and wiped it with a clean microfiber towel, and then I repeated the process again for the same compound before moving on to the next product. And that already looks like it's having some sort of effect. We'll do the comparison at the end. Moving on, I'm replacing the polishing wheel before applying each new compound so that there's no intermixing of any chemicals. Next up, we have the Scratch Doctor, and we apply it in very much the same way as we did the Meguiar's Plastics. Now, for the Dremel polishing compound, I did not do a second application because the product was leaving very visible micro scratches on the surface of the PlayStation. And with that, let's remove this tape and take a closer look. So top left, that's our baseline. Bottom left, Meguiar's Plastics. Bottom right, New Finish Scratch Doctor, and top right, Dremel polishing compound. I really think I like the bottom right the best, and that would be the Scratch Doctor. At least to my eye, it looks like most of the scratches that were in that quadrant are either gone or barely visible. So I'm going to try a couple of applications of Scratch Doctor on the entire PlayStation to try and even everything out and see what kind of result we get. Alright guys, so you've seen the before and after shots, and here we are the next day. I wanted to show you guys the system in some natural light because it's one thing to look at it under a high-powered LED as you're trying to find every single micro scratch during the polish. It's another to just see what the end result would look like if the system was sitting on a shelf or sitting next to your TV. So I think the end result actually turned out pretty good. I'm actually surprised that any of these products worked as well as they did. So the fact that we had some success is actually pretty amazing. Now, some of you might be wondering why I used the metal polish on plastic to begin with, and I had seen similar polishes used to buff out scratches from plastic toys on other restoration videos, so that's where I got the idea from, but I would not recommend that you try it. It just introduces a bunch of micro scratches that then you have to go back in and buff out. So if you're going to try this, use the Scratch Doctor or the Meguiar's plastics. I personally like this better because it's a wetter product and I just found it easier to apply. But having said that, I think that the plastics is just as effective. Whichever product you use, be prepared to put in a ton of elbow grease. I had to go over multiple passes with a power tool, and if you're just using a microfiber towel and you're going over it a couple times, you're not going to be buffing anything out. So I know there's a ton of you out there that own systems that look like this or even more far gone than the way that this PS3 looked when we started. So if you try this, let me know how it goes. If you've done this sort of work before and you have tips or suggestions that might be helpful for others to follow, or for myself if I try this again later, definitely leave those suggestions down below. Enjoy polishing out the scratches from your PS3, guys, and I'll see you again soon.